Ed Carberry Show, the only coaches show in San Diego County, and we're joined live with Coach Ed Carberry coming to us from his home at down by Southwestern, right, Coach?
Actually, we live where we got married 42 years ago. We live in Ocean Beach.
That doesn't surprise me, Dave. We're going to ask Coach about last week's game against San Diego Mesa with his good friend, Gary Watkins. I'm sure Coach is happy for him, but still a little bit frustrated with what went on, Dave, out there last Saturday night. The Olympians kept Southwestern out of the end zone in a 14-4 game. I'll ask Coach in a moment if he's ever been in a game involving 4 points as the final score, but Mesa freshman quarterback Thomas Yam passed for a touchdown in the first quarter and rushed for another touchdown in the fourth quarter. Just a year ago, Coach beat his student, if you will, Coach Watkins, but this was the first win, Dave, over a Southwestern program in 25 years. So a pretty momentous occasion for Coach Watkins and Mesa, and some things to think about and work on with Coach Ed.
Yeah, Coach, what did you think about that? I mean, that's the old student and teacher clash, and you guys did clash last year as well. Obviously, last year, much better result, and I'm sure a lot more, as we saw, a lot more offensive scoring, much better defense. But in this one, 2 safeties.
It was totally bizarre. Midway through the fourth quarter, it was 7-4. I was waiting for somebody to come up and hit a grand slam and send us all home. It was made the old quote by John McKay, the old USC head coach. They had a bad game one day on offense, and the reporter asked, "Well, what about the execution of your offense?" And McKay said, "I'm in favor of it." So that's kind of where we were at. I mean, it just was talking to one of the other folks around school today. They asked me something about it, and it just was a bizarre. It was like Sisyphus, the guy who pushed the ball up the hill, and then it rolled back down on him. And then he pushed it back up the hill again, and it rolled. And that's his plight in life was to roll that ball back up the hill for the rest of eternity. That's what it felt like. We're out there getting every known penalty to man. We fumbled the ball. We snapped the ball low. We snapped the ball high. We snapped the ball kind of sideways. It was crazy. But in the end, we had a position. We were in position to win. We didn't have to do anything extraordinary because our defense had played really well. And as bad as our special teams were, we were inside the 30 twice in the fourth quarter. And got to give them credit. They did a good job on defense. But it was a very frustrating loss. There's only in all those years of games, there aren't too many that you step back and go 7-4. What?
Coach, even you could say, I've never seen that before.
I've never seen that. Absolutely never seen that before.
Dave?
And Coach, in this game, you were also put up against one of your former players from last year, and lo and behold, he was put out there, as I discussed with him. Lo and behold, Fishburne was put out there as a slot receiver, as told by Mesa that day. Were you surprised to see him kicking the extra points, punting, and in the slot?
He's a pretty versatile guy, that's for sure. So, all our kids know their kids, and all the internet and everything. I don't know where I heard it, but I already knew he was playing wide receiver. He's a outstanding athlete. He really did a great job contributing to their team, and we were happy for him. We'd rather win and be happy, but he's a good young man. We had him around for a year and wish him well.
Yeah, Dave, I think I remember Thomas making some kicks out at Steel Canyon. They might have had a kicker, but I think he did handle a lot of the kicking and maybe punting duties back then. So, Coach, in a game with not many highlights, we had maybe our highlight of the game in the first quarter. Sekeli Manu tackled Yam in the end zone for a safety, and Even more strange, I think, in that, please comment on Manu's safety and the play of the defense, which obviously had a pretty good day, but the score was 7-2 in the first half and 7-2 in the second half.
Yeah.
Intentional grounding later on.
Yes. Well, he did a great job all night. Our defense certainly played well enough for us to win. We intercepted a couple passes. We forced a bunch of fumbles, forced 2 safeties, and we're really put a lot of pressure on the Mesa quarterback. But they kind of hung in there, and eventually things went well for them.
Now, how did you feel about your quarterbacks as you fielded the whole house out there that evening? And did we learn a little more maybe about each of them, and maybe something might have changed while they were out there this last week?
Well, it's a funny team for us this year because we have a lot of size and athletes. You'd say, well, wow, they're going to be a really good football team. But Monday, I had everybody in the class, and there's probably 105 guys out there still. Asked them to raise their hand if it was their first college game, and 90 to 95% of them raised their hand. Across the O line, we're gigantic, but we're young. We're freshmen. We have one Gabe Preciado, our left guard, is a junior who came back to us from USD. Everybody else is a freshman. At the quarterback spot, you have Josh Owen, who he's a junior in college level, but he hasn't played very much in 2 years. And I know Brad Jeremiah, he went on to a what do they call those things again? It's not an academy, but prep school. And so he learned a lot about himself in his game while he was out of town, but still he has very little experience at that level, and it is different. And the other young man, Kerry Enos, he's a junior now, but he doesn't have he didn't play very much, which is why he left the university he was at. So it's a pretty inexperienced group. We made a bunch of mistakes. And we had guys open for touchdowns in the end zone.
Yes.
First play, we threw the ball down the field. We ran a double post, and the safety jumped the low guy, and our other guy, Tyler, went up behind him, was behind everybody on their team, and we threw it low to the other guy who intercepted it. So that was just one of those things that you look around and go, is this going to change? Are we going to actually see something? Because we had numerous opportunities and we let them get away from us. And again, Gary and his staff and the players did a great job for them.
Yeah,
and that's football 101, really, Ed. I mean, especially at this juncture in a football player's career, keeping the game in front of you, keeping the ball in front of you. I don't know how many coaches at how many levels, but that's football 101. You got to keep that in mind when you're playing on defense in particular, but on offense as well.
Well, offensively, we just couldn't do anything right. We'd have a big play and then get a penalty. Then we'd have another big play. Then one of our coaches ran into a referee on the sideline, and I ended up with a bench penalty because
automatic.
Yeah, and so that was a 15-yard penalty. We jumped off sides a bunch of times. The young man Justin from Granite Hills had one of the weirdest plays ever. The snapper snapped the ball low on the punt and skidded back there. He made a nice stop. He picked it up, tried to kick it, and everybody's coming right now. They all know where the ball's at. And our personal protector gets the ball kicked into his legs. And then Justin bends down, picks it up, looks around, and runs 30 yards with it. I'm just looking out there shaking my head trying to figure out what in the world is going to happen next.
Coach, I imagine, though, that does put a little bit of pressure on you and your staff. Kids are young, but you had to prepare them. So I imagine you guys went back and scratched your heads a bit and really felt like you had to go to work this week yourselves, huh?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I think I've seen that video about 8 times now. You go through there and just try to, evaluate not what they did well or what you didn't do well, but try to see what the flow of the game was like and what we could have done differently to win the game. And there's a ton of things out there that we changed one of them, and we are on the winning side, and things are great. We don't get that. Now here we are talking about the same game from last week. We're trying to be Bill Belichick, on to Palomar.
Yeah. It's that situation where you put more pressure on yourself because even though you have a crew that might be still a little bit green, it's those things that make you guys want to feel like you let them down a little bit. They end up in awkward positions, not because of the coaching, but because just something didn't connect there, Dave. But I will highlight some of the guys, Dave. Coach talked about the 2 interceptions. Isaac Wright, Tyquan Coleman with the picks for the Jags. And also, you mentioned Tyler on that one play, Coach. And pretty good debut, though. 5 catches, 34 yards. Kerry Wright also had 4 catches. And I'll highlight the defense again. We touted McCurdy with you, and he did have 9 tackles to lead the team. And Larry Matkins, 2 tackles for loss among his 7 tackles.
He was a real active guy. Andrew Chassé from Lincoln High School was our defensive player of the game. He had 4 or 5 tackles for loss, and he's a returning all-state player who's first team all-conference. And so he makes a big difference up there in the middle for sure. Ubaldo Torres from Castle Park High School played a great game for us also at defensive end. And so we had a lot of really, really good performances. And you turn around and look around at the final score and wonder kind of what could have happened.
Now, what's the conversation on the sideline at this point? Late in the game, your defense is playing lights out pretty much, and they're just grueling from being on the field for so long. So, what's the talk on the sidelines? I mean, between the offense, the defense, and the special teams, and you're just looking to punch one in.
Yeah, we're the old Bo Schembechler deal. The team. There's nothing more important of it. You have to fight fractionalization at any of the community colleges. When we've won or when we've lost, it is still pretty much the same identity. Some guys always think that they're the better player and they should be in there, and so that creates a couple issues. When you're winning, it doesn't stand up as much. When you lose, everybody starts to look and want to see why that happened. But we. Each 3 phases of the game, our punter, Cesar Macias from Mar Vista, and he put one down on the 2-yard line. He put another one inside the 10. He really flipped the field formationally for us and to give us good field position. We just couldn't cash in.
Now, what did you think on the other side of things, Coach? What did you think of Gary's group, especially on offense themselves? I mean, they played against you guys were lights out, but for them to even put up the 14 points that they did put up had to be impressive from the young student.
Oh yeah, he's a great coach. He has a great way about him. Kids like him. He's since I've known him, I think I first met him when he was 14 years old, so it's been quite a while. And he's just a first-class guy that works hard. Guys that have played against him, I've asked, what's his team like? Very, very professional, very few. I think in their scrimmage with Ventura, they only got 1 penalty. So he's really doing a great job over there. We enjoy the competition and look forward to it in the future.
Yeah, Dave, they had a couple of picks. Isaiah Mitchell, Hunter Allen, part of the group that held Coach's team to just 200 yards. So, Coach, can you just tell me a little bit about what you think their prospectus is? You guys were obviously going to say now ranked 14th in that preseason poll, but you probably, looking back on it right, would say, hey, based on our laurels, that might be the case. But maybe rising up a little bit, garnering attention. But they've got a tough game this week. They're going to play Golden West, and Golden West just lost 38-33 to Fullerton, so they've probably got a pretty good club.
Well, you know, of all the years, the 15 years I've been a head coach at the community college level, uh, Golden West has been consistently the best coached team that we've played against in terms of not necessarily scheme or what have you, but organization. Defensively, everybody lines up well. They're real basic, but they make you have to knock them down to gain yards. And he just is a first class. I'm struggling trying to remember his last name, Nick, and Nick is his first name, but you know he really does a great job out there. And we fought to a close battle here. Our first year we beat him 20-3 to win the league title and do some good things there. But he's really created a great niche there. They have their own stadium now on campus. They don't have to deal with anything with Gold Orange Coast, so that's a plus for them too. So the Olympians are going to have their hands full, not just because of the game there with Fullerton, but overall just because they're a top talent team.
They can compete though, right, in this game, even though it's on the road.
Oh yeah,
Keep it within. I don't want to say keep it within. I mean, we want Coach Watkins to win, but realistically, I mean, maybe it's 3-7 point game, or am I? Or should it be bigger than that?
I think you know the way Mesa moved the ball later in the fourth quarter. They moved the ball pretty good, but we've been out there defensively for a long time. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be 7 to 10 points will make the difference for sure.
Dave, Mesa didn't do that great offensively, certainly against Coach Ed's defense. What do you think?
Well, I mean, different team this year, but I do recall Golden West out at San Diego Mesa last year. And I'll tell you what, it was a shootout. If I recall correctly, it was up in the 50s offensively. So both teams were scoring at will. But after seeing the no knock against Mesa's quarterbacks, but definitely not the same setup that they had with Jake last year, who was a phenomenal quarterback for the Olympians. More of I'd say that he was real good mobile and had just a rocket arm. But this year, I think, and looking at the other score with Fullerton, I think it should be about a 10-point game. But I don't think it's going to be the shootout that it was last season.
Yeah, they're going to be. They had a quarterback who could, as you mentioned earlier, he could put the ball right on the money. They played Fullerton, and we saw that when we were scouting for Fullerton, and he hit 3 deep balls, hit the guy right in stride, and he caught 3 touchdowns on there. Ben Ratzliff is the guy who caught the ball. That was the young man from Westview here in San Diego.
Dave, the Palomar Comets last Saturday night, they took a 14-0 lead on Rodney Thompson's touchdown passes to Johnny Armentrout and Kyron Griffin in the first quarter, helped propel them to a 30-19 win over visiting Moore Park on Saturday at Cougar Stadium. Coach Rodney Thompson, a pretty good player, and you're going to get a chance to see them again this week against those Comets coming in to your stadium. What do you think of this week's game? What do you think of those Comets? Thompson is definitely something to worry about.
Well, they're always well coached. Joe Early's been there forever. Has the same defensive coordinator who does a good job. And then Tom Everest, who's one of the old guard high school coaches in North County. He was a coach at Escondido High School. And boy, he does a phenomenal job with the special teams. We're going to have to match their intensity. They got a very fast defense. They have a returning middle linebacker, Coleman, who's number 43, that was All-State this last year. And they play get after football. They got their foot back and they're charging into your backfield and then redirecting. On offense, they've got 2 real tall receivers to go get the ball. And the quarterback from Saints, who's he's a risk taker. He hit 2 big touchdowns and he got picked twice, trying to squeeze the ball into a pretty tight area. But his biggest threat is really to take off running. Very unpredictable. Is a great playmaker for them, and it's going to be a difference. And the kicking game, they always cover the kicks well.
Dave Thompson rushed for 43 yards last week, but in his 21 for 35 performance, 15 of those passes went to who coach is talking about, Griffin and Armentrout. They combined for 15 catches for 207 yards, and the rest of the team just had 6 catches. So, Dave, I think that the focus would be on those two guys and also try to contain Thompson.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's going to be a plan to probably blanket those guys, double team them for a majority of the game. I'm sure is the plan. Take them out of the equation. You should be point for point, maybe keep it at a 3-point game.
I want to definitely give credit on our end to our defensive coordinator and our whole defensive staff. Dionisio Menares is our defensive coordinator. He's the health department chairman at Southwestern College, and he's just done a fantastic job burning that midnight oil, old school wise. And we've got a great staff. Nick Galatis, who played at Grossmont and Southwestern. Doug Williams, who lives out in Ramona and drives down every day. And Clyde Logan, who coaches our DBs and also is our special teams coach. And these guys have just outworked everybody. They have a great game plan, a great leadership role by Coach Mo, as we call him. And, he'll have the Chargers ready to go, certainly on Saturday.
Now, Coach, were these all coaches that over the years were possibly handpicked by yourself?
Well, Clyde and I, our DB coach, we worked together at San Jacinto when he got out of the Marine Corps. Doug was a friend of Thad Porless, who used to coach at USD and out there at Cathedral Catholic. And so he came on with us. And so it's been Coach Menares, Dionisio, was already on campus as a teacher and had been coaching there previously, and took a couple of years off to work with his son at Bonita Vista High School. So we've been very fortunate to have those guys there on offense. We got a great staff between Thad with the quarterbacks and Jose Baez, who's played for us and coached with us. Ken Wilmisher, who's one of the top O-line coaches around. Aniel Goodwin from Grossmont College is over here with us, as well as Norm Houlihan, who's an assistant coach for us. So we've had a great group of guys. Mike Napoleon, whose dad was the head coach at Grossmont High School out in East County for quite a while, is also on our staff. He does a really good job.
So, Coach, besides that, this week you played Palomar, like you said, they're well coached. You've played them many times over the years, just like Grossmont has. Everybody out here in San Diego County, and you've always said that Palomar's played you real close in so many of the meetings. So I wouldn't expect anything to change this week, right?
No, we have a good competition going. We beat them twice last year, and their players might not remember, but their coaches certainly do. So I'm sure they're licking their chops, getting ready to come down to Chula Vista and see if they can take care of us out here. But I think we've beaten them 3 or 4 of the last 5 to 6 times. We've been very fortunate. They're a great team and super coaches over there.
Yeah, Dave, we'll make a prediction, you and I maybe. I think that even though Palomar coming in with a good performance and maybe Southwestern coming with the subpar performance, put the game at the DeVore Stadium, and I think that Southwestern expected to win this one. Post-game, maybe 28-24, 27-24, something there. We're going to get more offense, right, Coach, this week?
Absolutely. It's hard to go anywhere but up.
Dave, I'll just touch on one other game this week, and maybe we'll ask Coach about it too. But you went out and you saw Grossmont Griffins and their season opener, their faux home opener, kind of. They didn't get to start at their new field yet. They had to start at Grossmont High again, but they let Long Beach get away from them 55-24. The Vikings rolled up a big lead, 600 yards of total offense last week. Their freshman passed for 200 yards. But Jarius Burnett, 82 yards on 19 carries. Sharif Harris-Legree made his debut at quarterback 148 yards, and a touchdown. But I think the story of the game for Grossmont was the return of Malik Steen, who had a great year in 2017, took last year off. 4 catches for 84 yards, including a 57-yarder. And our boy Jack Browning from West Hills, 3 extra points and a 32-yard field goal, Dave. But this week, not necessarily an easy task for Grossmont. They're going to go up and play Canyons.
Yeah, and the thing is, you were mentioning about Browning. He was money for the most part. Like he was all his time at West Hills. He was really where you could bet on him every time that he was going to make it. But they did miss one, unfortunately, last week. I think Long Beach City College is really a tall order for this Grossmont team anyway. Just looking at it, player for player, they had a lot of guys, talented guys, Long Beach team. However, I think they haven't really solidified anybody at the quarterback position yet either. Now with that early season injury to Brady Apt, which was going to be their starter, which I personally think could have really turned things around, knowing that offense as well as he did. And really, it doesn't show in the score, but the defense needs a little work. But early on, they were playing pretty well. But as we all know, and Coach knows from last week, being on the field most of the time, you're eventually going to run out of gas.
Let me shout out these defensive guys for Grossmont that did some things. They're East County guys. So Robert Whitehead had an interception. Charles Smith an interception, and former Helix star Riri Tarant-Patain had 15 tackles. Also, Robert Durrani had a sack and a half. And Coach, how did this guy get away from the Olympian grad, Rock Gonzalez? He also had a sack.
That's a good question. We recruited him, had him over to school numerous times. Thought we had him, and he just got away. They're all looking for the best fit. And if that's the best fit for him, then we're happy for him.
Looks like it might be for Rock with that sack. And we'll ask you, Coach, maybe to brief us on Canyon's program to kind of get us up to speed. Tell us about them. They lost to Saddleback, I think 45-20 last week. They only had 75 yards rushing, but I'm sorry, right now, Grossmont's certainly a 3-touchdown underdog or more still against them. Tell us about Canyons, please.
I don't know a whole lot about them personnel-wise. I know that last year they were 10-0 the regular season. They had been really a dominant program for quite a while, and then they dipped for 2 or 3 years when their head coach resigned, and he's now the athletic director there. And I think that kind of made the program tilt, as I said, just a little bit. And now they're back, and it's a dominant force area. That area right there is really strong in personnel.
Yeah, right back up there in the top 5, top 10 teams.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I vote every week, and I voted extremely high for both those, for them and for Saddleback and RCC.
Yeah, I didn't see the poll this week, so maybe you can tell me if anything happened with you guys or with Mesa. I know Ventura was number 1, right, and Riverside number 2, but that's all I know.
Yeah, I didn't see it either. I was had my head buried in that video.
Yeah, I imagine you did, Coach. So we're gonna have to have better news next week. We did fine. You did great. The show wasn't so great because the results weren't so great last week. So we need a win to make the show better.
Absolutely.
Dave, you got anything else for Coach? I think we touched on these other games just fine.
No, absolutely. Just always a pleasure to have you on it, and just a great friend of the East Counties and of East County sports for many years, and we're just glad that you're still at it. And as we talked about in your initial interview for the season, I don't think you're going anywhere anytime soon.
Not that I know of.
Right.
There's some kind of surprise somewhere.
Any more crazy 4-point games, and we're all going to be doing something else. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Coach Ed
Absolutely.
Carberry on the Ed Carberry Show. We'll get into some players too as the weeks go along and make this a little more fun for all of us with some
bet.
wins.
Looking
Okay.
forward to it.
Thanks, Coach Ed. Thanks, Dave. Great job. I'm Ramon Scott. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Okay. That was good.
Yeah, went good, Coach.
All right, great.